Day 267. We're going to read a story today of Jesus healing a bleeding woman and restoring a girl to life. This is in Mark chapter 5, verses 21, and we'll finish with verse 43. You can also find these same accounts in Matthew chapter 9 and also in Luke chapter 8. But we'll read the account here from Mark 5. So starting in Mark 5, verse 21, it says, "When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, 'My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live.' So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she had heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, 'If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed.' Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, 'Who touched my clothes?' 'You see the people crowding around against you,' his disciples answered, and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?' But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. And he said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering.' While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. 'Your daughter is dead,' they said. 'Why bother the teacher anymore?' Overhearing what they said, Jesus told them, 'Don't be afraid, just believe.' He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, 'Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep.' But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her," and I'm gonna butcher this, but it says in Hebrew, I believe, Talitha Kum, which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this time, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. I think sometimes, and I've talked about this before, growing up in church and hearing these parables that Jesus spoke, and then hearing firsthand accounts of miracles that Jesus performed with a ton of people witnessing, a ton of different kinds of people listening, that wouldn't have served them any purpose to lie about this. And this is accounted, these beautiful miracles are accounted in many different books in the Bible, often very similar accounts, which just builds the integrity of the story. But again, growing up in church, you hear all of these things and you can almost become a little numb to it, or you actually start to subconsciously think of them as just stories and these are just characters of the story, when in reality, Jesus absolutely walked this earth. That is the God's honest truth, and he actually performed many miracles for many different people, including defeating death and coming back to life. So I think sometimes it's just really good to dive into the details of the miracles that Jesus performed and the way that he interacted with people, and to remind ourselves that these are accounts that actually happened. These are real life accounts and not just stories. I think sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that. So that's what I have today in Mark 5. You can also get it in Matthew 9 or Luke 8 about these two stories of Jesus healing the bleeding woman and restoring a girl to life. And the last thing I'll say is the first lady he healed, that's the kind of faith that I think we all can strive to have, she just reached out and touched his cloak because she was convinced that he could help her. And I think that faith that just goes and the faith that just does things, I think we could benefit a lot in our lives by having that kind of active faith. That's day 267.